Jake Miller pulled his small ship into the docking bay of Nexus 7. The trade station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. Ships of all shapes and sizes filled the bays. Most of them belonged to aliens who looked down on humans like Jake. He walked through the station's main corridor. Tall Corvani soldiers stomped past him in their thick armor. Their bug-like faces showed no emotion. A group of Zephyrians floated by, their see-through skin glowing softly. They moved like dancers in the air. Near a shop, several Bralix merchants waved their forearms as they argued over prices. Jake stopped at the job board. He needed work, badly. His ship needed repairs and he was running out of food. Most jobs required big crews or expensive equipment. Then he saw it, a salvage contract for the Void sector. The pay was good, really good. "You looking at that job, human?" a deep voice asked behind him. Jake turned around. A massive Corvani stood there, easily twice Jake's size. His armor had marks showing he was a commander. Other aliens gathered around to watch. "Yeah, I am," Jake said. "Problem with that?" The Corvani laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. "You? In the Void sector? That's suicide for something as weak as you." More aliens joined the crowd. A Zephyrian female floated closer. Her voice was like wind chimes. "Humans can barely survive on their own planet. How do you expect to handle deep space salvage?" "Listen, to Veltha," the Corvani commander said. "She's right. Your species only left your world a few decades ago. We've been traveling the stars for thousands of years." A Bralix merchant pushed through the crowd. His forearms moved as he talked. "I've worked with humans before. Weak bones, soft skin, no natural weapons. They break too easily." Jake felt, his face getting hot. "I can handle myself just fine." The commander stepped closer. His name tag read, Thexvor. He looked down at Jake like he was studying an insect. "Really? Your people couldn't even stop fighting each other until recently. World wars, nuclear weapons pointed at your own cities. Such a violent, stupid species. At least we don't hide behind thick shells," Jake shot back. Thexvor's laugh was louder this time. "Hide? Boy, this armor has seen more battles than your entire species has fought. Each mark tells a story of victory." The Zephyrian, Veltha, moved between them. "There's no need for fighting. The human will learn soon enough. The galaxy is not kind to the weak and foolish." "I've seen human ships," the Bralix said. "Ugly things made of cheap metal. They fall apart if you look at them wrong. How can you salvage anything with junk like that?" Jake's hands made fists. "My ship has gotten me this far." "This far?" Thexvor looked around the docking bay. "You mean to a second-rate trading post? How impressive." More aliens had gathered. They whispered and pointed. Some laughed. Jake heard words like primitive and pathetic in several alien languages. "The truth is," Veltha said in her musical voice, "humans simply aren't ready for the dangerous work. Your technology is too basic. Your bodies are too fragile. Maybe in a few hundred years, after you've evolved more." "We don't need to evolve," Jake said. "We just need a chance to prove ourselves." This made the whole crowd laugh. Even some aliens who had just been walking by stopped to see what was funny. Thexvor wiped his eye with a clawed hand. "Prove yourselves? Child, your species has been trying to prove itself since you crawled out of your gravity well. The result? You're still bottom feeders, taking scraps no one else wants." The Bralix nodded all four of his arms. "It's not personal. Human. It's just business. No one trusts your kind with important work. Too risky." "What's risky about it?" Jake asked. "Everything," Veltha answered. "You might get hurt. Then your government would complain. They might even try to sue us. It's easier to work with species that can take care of themselves." Jake looked at the job posting again. Void sector salvage. Ancient battlefield. High radiation. Gravity storms. It was dangerous, but the pay would solve all his problems. "I'm taking this job," he said. The laughter stopped. Thexvor's face got serious. "No, you're not. That job requires real skill, real equipment, real courage." The posting doesn't say anything about species limits, Jake pointed out. It doesn't need to, the Brolic said. Everyone knows humans can't handle work like that. Watch me. Jake reached for the job posting. Thexvor's clawed hand slammed against the wall, blocking him. I won't let you kill yourself on my watch, the commander said. Besides, that job was meant for my crew. First come, first served, Jake said. He ducked under the alien's arm and grabbed the posting. The crowd gasped. Some aliens stepped back. Others moved closer, expecting a fight. Thexvor's voice was low and dangerous. Put that back, little human. Make me. For a moment, nobody moved. The station's background noise seemed to fade away. Then Thexvor started laughing again. Fine, he said. Take the job. When they find your frozen corpse floating in space, maybe other humans will learn to know their place. If they even bother looking for him, Veltha added. The void sector eats ships whole. No one will blame us when he doesn't come back. Jake held the job posting tight. I'll be back, and when I am, you can all apologize. Apologize? The Brolix's forearms waved in amusement. For what? Warning you about your own limitations? For judging me before you knew what I could do. Thexvor shook his head. Stupid human pride. It's going to get you killed. The crowd started to break up. As the aliens walked away, Jake heard their comments. Foolish creature. Too bad. He seemed nicer than most humans. At least it will be quick. Jake walked back to his ship. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. He was angry. He was tired of being looked down on. Tired of being called weak and primitive. Tired of taking scraps while aliens got the good jobs. He looked at the job posting one more time. Void sector. Ancient battlefield. Dangerous salvage. A work. The pay was enough to buy a new ship, maybe even start his own salvage company. Jake smiled. Let them laugh. He would show them what humans could really do. His ship's engine started with a familiar rumble. As he flew away from Nexus 7, Jake didn't look back. He had work to do. Jake's ship shook as it entered the void sector. Red warning lights flashed on his control panel. The space around him was filled with dangerous things. Gravity storms pulled at his ship. Radiation made his sensors go crazy. Broken pieces of ancient ships floated everywhere like deadly snow. He had been flying for 3 days now. The job posting said the salvage site was an old battlefield. Ships had fought here thousands of years ago. Most salvagers avoided this place because it was too dangerous. That's why Jake was here alone. His ship's computer kept beeping warnings. Radiation levels high, it said in its calm voice. Gravity anomaly detected. Course correction recommended. I know, Jake muttered. He had heard the same warnings 100 times already. He flew past the broken remains of huge warships. Some were bigger than city blocks. They were all dead now, dark and cold. Jake wondered what kind of beings had flown them. What had they been fighting about? Why had they all died here? His scanner picked up something strange. There was a ship ahead, but it wasn't broken like the others. It looked completely whole. Jake frowned at his screen. That can't be right. He flew closer. The ship was enormous, maybe 10 times bigger than anything he had ever seen. Its hull was black and smooth. No scratches, no damage, no signs that it had been in a battle at all. How is this possible? Jake asked himself. Every other ship in this graveyard was smashed to pieces. This one looked like it had just been built. He ran a full scan. The ship was made of materials his computer didn't recognize. It was giving off a faint energy reading, which meant some systems might still be working. After thousands of years in space, that was impossible. But here it was. Jake checked his air supply and put on his spacesuit. If he was going to explore this ship, he needed to be careful. He flew his small ship next to the giant one and looked for a way in. He found an airlock near what he thought was the front. Strange symbols were carved into the hull around it. They looked like writing, but not from any language Jake knew. The symbols seemed to glow faintly in his ship's lights. Jake connected his ship to the airlock. He had done this many times before with dead ships. Usually nothing happened. Dead ships stayed dead. But when he pressed the airlock control, something amazing happened. The airlock opened. Light came on inside the strange ship. Jake could hear air moving through the connection between his ship and the big one. His instruments showed that the air was safe to breathe. "This is crazy," he said to himself. But he opened the airlock door and stepped inside. The corridor beyond was like nothing he had ever seen. The walls were the same smooth black material as the outside. They curved upward in a way that made Jake feel small. Lights came on as he walked, showing him the way forward. Everything was huge. The corridor was wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. The ceiling was so high that Jake's flashlight couldn't reach it. Whoever had built this ship was much bigger than humans. Jake walked slowly, looking at everything. The walls had more of those strange symbols carved into them. Some looked like pictures. Others looked like writing. There were images of tall figures in armor fighting against things that looked familiar. Very familiar. Jake stopped at one carving. It showed armored warriors fighting against creatures that looked like Corvani soldiers. Another showed them battling things that looked like Zephyrians. A third showed them fighting creatures that looked like Bralix merchants. "What the hell?" Jake whispered. He kept walking. The corridor led to a large room filled with rows of tall, dark objects. At first, Jake thought they were statues. Then, he realized what he was looking at. They were bodies, hundreds of them. They were lying in crystal containers that glowed with soft light. Each container held a warrior in black armor. The warriors were tall, maybe 8 feet. They looked human, but bigger and stronger. Jake walked between the rows of sleeping warriors. Their faces were peaceful. They looked like they were just sleeping, waiting to wake up. But Jake's scanner showed no life signs. They had been dead for a very long time. At the end of the room, Jake found something different. One container was empty. Next to it stood a suit of the same black armor the dead warriors wore. But this armor was different. It seemed to be waiting for someone. Jake approached carefully. The armor was beautiful. It was made of the same unknown material as the ship. Symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly in the dim light. It looked like it would fit a human perfectly. As Jake got closer, something incredible happened. The armor began to glow brighter. Lights appeared all around the room. Suddenly, a voice spoke. Jake couldn't understand the words, but somehow he knew what they meant. The voice was welcoming him. It was saying hello to someone it had been waiting for. A shape appeared in the air in front of Jake. It was made of light like a ghost. The figure was tall and wore armor like the sleeping warriors. It looked at Jake with eyes that seemed ancient and wise. The figure spoke again. This time, Jake understood every word. "Welcome, son of Earth," it said. "We have waited long for your return." Jake's mouth fell open. "My return? I've never been here before." "No," the figure said. "But your ancestors have. They built this ship. They wore this armor. They fought the wars that created this graveyard." The ghost pointed at the empty armor. "This was meant for their heir, for the one who would come when Earth was ready to reclaim its place among the stars." "Earth?" Jake shook his head. "You're talking about humans?" "We are talking about the greatest warriors the galaxy has ever known," the figure said. "Your people ruled these stars long ago, before they were forced to retreat, before they went into hiding on a small blue world to heal and grow strong again." Jake looked at the sleeping warriors, at the ancient ship that still worked after thousands of years, at the armor that seemed to be calling to him. "That's impossible," he said. "Humans only reached space a few decades ago. We're the youngest species in the galaxy. Everyone says we're weak and primitive." The figure smiled sadly. "They say this because they do not remember, because we made them forget when we left. But the blood of warriors still flows in your veins. The strength of your ancestors sleeps in your bones. And now it is time to wake up." The armor glowed brighter. Jake could feel it calling to him, promising him strength, promising him answers, promising him the chance to show the galaxy what humans really were, Jake reached out and touched the black metal. It was warm under his fingers. Alive. What do I have to do? He asked. The figure's smile grew wider. Put it on, son of Earth. Put it on, and remember who you really are. Jake stared at the black armor. His hands were shaking. Everything the ghost figure had told him seemed impossible. Humans were supposed to be the weak newcomers to the galaxy. Everyone said so. I don't understand, Jake said. If humans were so powerful, why doesn't anyone remember? Why do aliens treat us like we're nothing? The figure of light moved closer. Because we chose to be forgotten. When the Great War ended, when our enemies lay broken, we could have ruled through fear. Instead, we chose mercy. Images appeared in the air around them. Jake saw battles in space, huge fleets fighting, planets burning. The warriors in black armor were always winning, always pushing forward. We were too strong, the figure continued. Our weapons, our armor, our ships. We were destroying the galaxy to save it. So our leaders made a choice. They took our people to a safe world. They hid our technology. They let our enemies forget what we could do. Earth, Jake whispered. Earth, the figure agreed. A small blue world where humans could heal from the war. Where they could learn to be more than just warriors. Where they could grow into something better. Jake watched the images change. He saw humans landing on Earth. He saw them putting away their weapons and armor. He saw them starting to build peaceful cities instead of war machines. But the galaxy didn't become peaceful, Jake said. The Corvani still fight wars. The Zephyrians still think they're better than everyone. The Bralics only care about money. The figure nodded sadly. Without strong humans to keep them in line, the old ways came back. Slowly at first, then faster. Now they have forgotten why they once feared to start wars. Jake looked at the armor again. It seemed to pulse with inner light. And this will help me remember? It will do more than that, the figure said. It will make you whole again. The armor carries the knowledge of 1,000 battles, the wisdom of our greatest generals, the strength our people need to protect themselves. Just me? One human with fancy armor? The figure smiled. You think you are the only one? Look around you, son of Earth. The lights in the room grew brighter. Jake could see more clearly now. The sleeping warriors weren't all the same species. Some looked human, but different, stronger, bigger. These are humans too, the figure explained. Changed by the armor. Improved. Made into what humans were always meant to become. Jake walked to one of the crystal containers. The warrior inside looked like a human, but was at least 8 feet tall. His muscles were huge. His skin looked tough as leather. The armor doesn't just protect you, the figure said. It makes you better, stronger, faster, smarter. It unlocks the potential that sleeps in human genes. What happened to them? Jake asked. They chose to sleep until they were needed again. Until someone came to wake them. The figure looked at Jake. Until you came. Jake turned back to the empty armor. What if I'm not the right person? What if I mess this up? You took a job that every alien said would kill you. You flew through the void sector alone. You found this ship when no one else could. You are here now, when the galaxy needs human strength again. The figure's voice was gentle but firm. You are exactly the right person. Jake reached out and touched the armor's chest plate. The metal was warm and smooth. It felt alive under his fingers. How do I put it on? Just touch it and think about who you want to become. Jake pressed both hands against the armor. He thought about all the times aliens had laughed at him, all the times they had called humans weak and stupid, all the jobs he couldn't get because no one trusted his species. The armor began to move. Pieces of it flowed like liquid metal. They wrapped around Jake's arms and legs. The chest piece opened like a flower and closed around his body. The helmet formed over his head like growing crystal. Jake expected to feel trapped or heavy. Instead, he felt free. The armor was lighter than his clothes. It moved when he moved. It felt like a second skin. Then the real changes started. Knowledge flooded into Jake's mind. fighting techniques from a dozen warrior schools, battle tactics that had won 1,000 wars, languages and customs from across the galaxy, history that went back millions of years. Jake gasped as his body began to change too. His muscles grew stronger, his bones became denser, his reflexes became faster. His eyes could see better in the dark. His ears could hear sounds that were too quiet for normal humans. "What's happening to me?" Jake asked. His voice sounded different through the helmet. Deeper, more confident. "You are becoming what humans were always meant to be," the figure said. "The armor is unlocking your genetic potential, making you into the warrior your ancestors were." Jake looked at his hands. They were bigger now, covered in black metal that moved like skin. He felt strong, really strong, strong enough to bend steel bars, strong enough to punch through walls. But it wasn't just physical strength. His mind felt clearer too. He could think faster, understand things better, see connections he had missed before. "There are others," Jake said suddenly. He somehow knew this was true. "Other humans ready for armor like this?" "Yes," the figure smiled. "Hidden across the galaxy, on Earth, on colony worlds, in space stations. Warriors sleeping in human bodies waiting for someone to wake them up." Images flashed in Jake's mind. He saw locations across space, hidden vaults filled with armor and weapons, ancient human settlements that had been forgotten by history, ships like this one waiting in dark corners of the galaxy. How many? "Enough," the figure said. "Enough to remind the galaxy why they once feared to laugh at humans." Jake felt power flowing through him. The armor was connected to the ship's systems. He could control lights and doors with just a thought. He could access databases that held the history of the galaxy. He could see through sensors that showed him space for millions of miles in every direction. "The aliens back at Nexus 7, Jake said. "They have no idea what's coming." "No," the figure agreed. "They think humans are weak because they have only seen sleeping humans. They have never met a human who was truly awake." Jake walked to the ship's main display. Star charts appeared in the air around him. He could see Earth, the human colonies, and the locations of the hidden vaults. He could also see something else. Alien fleets gathering. Preparations for wars that would burn across the galaxy. "They're getting ready to fight each other again," Jake said. "Yes, without humans to keep the peace the old enemies are stirring. Soon there will be war like the galaxy hasn't seen for thousands of years. Unless someone stops them." The figure nodded. "Unless someone reminds them why peace is better than war. Unless someone shows them that there are still consequences for starting fights." Jake understood now. The armor wasn't just about making him strong. It was about giving humans the power to protect the galaxy again, to be the peacekeepers they had been before. "What about the others?" Jake asked. "The sleeping warriors?" "They will wake when they are needed. When you call for them. But first, you must go back to where this started. You must show the galaxy that humans have returned." Jake smiled inside his helmet. He thought about Thexivore and his mocking laughter, about Veltha and her superior attitude, about all the aliens who had called him weak and primitive. They were about to learn that they had been very, very wrong. Jake's ship docked at Nexus 7 3 days later, but he wasn't the same human who had left. The black armor had changed everything about him. He was taller, stronger, and faster. His mind was filled with ancient knowledge and battle skills. He could have hidden the armor, made it look like normal clothes. But he didn't want to hide anymore. He wanted every alien on the station to see what humans really were. Jake walked through the same corridors where aliens had laughed at him. But now something was different. Aliens stopped talking when they saw him. They moved out of his way. Some even backed against the walls. The armor wasn't just protective gear. It was a statement. It said that humans were not the weak creatures. Everyone thought they were. Jake headed straight for the job board where everything had started. A crowd was gathered there, the same aliens who had mocked him before. Thexivore was in the middle, telling stories about human weakness. And so I told the little human, Thexavor was saying, that the void sector would kill him. Probably did too. Haven't seen him since. Shame, Veltha said in her musical voice. He seemed braver than most of his kind. Brave and stupid are the same thing sometimes, the Bralix merchant added with his forearms waving. Jake stepped into the circle. Miss me? The aliens turned around. When they saw him, their expressions changed from amusement to confusion to fear. Jake was now almost as tall as Thexavor. The black armor covered him completely, but they could see his human eyes through the helmet. Symbols glowed softly across the armor's surface like writing made of light. You, Thexavor said slowly. You're the human who took the void sector job. I am, Jake replied. And I completed it. Impossible, Veltha whispered. No one survives the void sector alone, especially not a human. Jake smiled behind his helmet. Want to see what I found? He activated a holographic display from his armor. Images appeared in the air showing the ancient battlefield, the mysterious ship, and the sleeping warriors. The aliens gasped and stepped back. This is fake, Thexavor said, but his voice wasn't confident anymore. Human technology can't create displays like this. You're right, Jake agreed. Human technology can't. But this isn't human technology. It's much older. More aliens had gathered around them. Word was spreading through the station that something strange was happening. Security guards were pushing through the crowd. Grusk, the Bralix who had called Jake weak, pointed at the armor. Where did you get that? What is it made of? It's made of the same material that built the first starships. Before your people learned to fly. Before any of your races left their homeworlds. That's impossible, Veltha said. Humans have only been in space for decades. You're the youngest race in the galaxy. Jake laughed and the sound echoed strangely through his helmet. We're the youngest race to return to space. We were flying between stars when your ancestors were still learning to make fire. Lies, Thexavor snarled. He moved closer, his clawed hand reaching for his weapon. I don't know what game you're playing, human, but it ends now. Jake didn't move. Go ahead. Draw your weapon. Thexavor's claws wrapped around the handle of his plasma pistol. You think that fancy suit will protect you? I think you're about to learn why your ancestors used to be afraid of humans. Thexavor drew his weapon faster than most beings could. See? But Jake was faster. The moment the gun started to move, Jake's hand shot out and caught Thexavor's wrist. The big Corvani tried to pull free, but Jake's grip was like iron. With his other hand, Jake reached out and crushed the plasma pistol, like it was made of paper. My turn, Jake said. He lifted Thexavor off the ground with one hand and threw him across the corridor. The armored alien crashed into a wall hard enough to dent the metal. The crowd gasped and moved back. Some aliens were reaching for weapons. Others were calling for station security. 3 Corvani guards rushed forward with shock staffs. Jake stood still and let them hit him. The electrical weapon struck his armor and did nothing. The energy just flowed across the black metal like water. Jake grabbed 2 of the shock staffs and snapped them in half. The 3rd guard tried to run, but Jake caught him by the shoulder. Tell your commander, Jake said calmly, that humans are no longer accepting disrespect. He let the guard go. The alien stumbled away, fear in his eyes. Veltha floated closer but stayed out of reach. What do you want, human? What is this display of power supposed to accomplish? It's supposed to remind you of something you forgot, Jake said. For thousands of years, aliens have lived in peace because humans kept the peace. When we left, you went back to your old ways. Wars and conflicts and the strong picking on the weak. We don't need humans to keep peace, Thexavor said as he pulled himself up from the floor. Green blood ran down his face. We can handle our own affairs. Jake gestured around the station. Really? How many weapons do you see? How many guards? How many barriers between species? You call this peace? It was true. Nexus 7 was filled with security measures. Different alien species were kept in separate sections. Armed guards watched every interaction. It wasn't peace. It was barely controlled hostility. This is just practical security. Veltho said, but she sounded less sure of herself. This is what happens when no one is strong enough to make everyone behave, Jake replied. When there's no consequence for starting trouble. A new voice spoke from the crowd. And you think humans can provide that consequence? Jake turned to see a tall alien he didn't recognize. This one was different from the others, older, more dangerous. His eyes held intelligence and caution. Who's asking? Jake said. Admiral Kolex of the Galactic Security Council. I've been watching your little demonstration. The crowd moved back even further. The Security Council was the closest thing the galaxy had to a government. Their word was law on most worlds. And what do you think of my demonstration? Jake asked. I think one human with fancy armor doesn't change the balance of power in the galaxy, Admiral Kolex said, even if that armor is very impressive. Jake smiled. You're right. One human doesn't change everything. He activated another display from his armor. This one showed locations across the galaxy, hundreds of them, thousands, but thousands of humans do. The display showed human settlements, hidden bases, and ancient vaults. Each one was marked with the same symbols that covered Jake's armor. At each of these locations, Jake said, humans are remembering who they used to be. They're putting on armor like mine. They're waking up to their true potential. Admiral Kolex studied the display carefully. Even if this is real, even if you have thousands of warriors, you're still vastly outnumbered. The galaxy has billions of beings. The galaxy had billions of beings last time too, Jake replied. It didn't matter then, it won't matter now. He deactivated the display and looked around at all the aliens watching him. I'm not here to threaten anyone, Jake said. I'm here to make an offer. The same offer my ancestors made long ago. Peace. Order. Protection for those who can't protect themselves. And if we refuse? Thexfor asked. He was standing now but staying well back from Jake. Then you'll learn what happens when humans stop being nice. Jake turned and started walking away. The crowd parted in front of him like water. This isn't over, human, Admiral Kolex called after him. Jake stopped and looked back. No, it's not. It's just beginning. As Jake walked back to his ship, he could hear the aliens talking behind him. Some were scared. Some were angry. Some were planning. But they were all talking about humans now. And they weren't laughing anymore. 6 months after Jake's return to Nexus 7, the galaxy was a different place. The news of the armored human had spread to every corner of civilized space. Some called it impossible. Others called it a hoax. But when more humans began appearing, in similar black armor, no one was laughing anymore. Jake stood on the bridge of the ancient ship he had found. But now it wasn't empty. Hundreds of humans moved through its corridors. They came from Earth, from colony worlds, from space stations, across the galaxy. All of them wore the black armor. All of them had awakened to their true heritage. Admiral Miller, a voice said behind him. Jake turned. It was Lisa Carter, one of the first humans to answer his call. She had been a cargo pilot on a freight route between Earth and Alpha Centauri. Now she wore armor like his and commanded a squadron of awakened human fighters. Report, Jake said. The vault on Kepler 442b is open. We recovered 50 suits of armor and a full weapons cache. Marcus Webb is leading the awakening there. Jake nodded. Marcus had been a construction worker before he put on the armor. Now he was teaching other humans how to access their genetic potential. The armor didn't just make humans stronger, it helped them become what they were always meant to be. Any resistance from the local authorities? Lisa smiled. The Corvani garrison tried to stop us at first. They demanded we surrender the stolen alien technology. Marcus showed them what human technology could really do. They decided to cooperate. Jake looked at the star map hovering above the bridge. Green dots showed human settlements. Blue dots showed recovered vaults and armories. Red dots showed potential trouble spots where alien governments were trying to suppress human awakening. What about the situation in the Vega system? He asked. Handled, Lisa replied. The Zephyrian fleet that was harassing human colonists has withdrawn. Seems they remembered some old stories their grandparents used to tell about armored warriors and black ships. Jake smiled. The galaxy's memory was longer than most aliens wanted to admit. Deep in their genetic memories, every species carried the fear of human warriors. They had just needed a reminder. "Admiral?" another voice called. Jake turned to see Tom Bradley approaching. He had been a teacher on Earth before the awakening. Now he was Jake's intelligence officer. "The Galactic Security Council is meeting an emergency session," Tom reported. "They're discussing the human situation." "Let me guess," Jake said. "They want us to give up our armor and go back to being peaceful colonists." "Something like that." "Admiral Kolex is pushing for military action. He's convinced several species to contribute ships to a peacekeeping force." Jake wasn't surprised. The alien powers had enjoyed decades of human weakness. They didn't want to give up their advantage. "How? Many ships?" he asked. 3,000 according to our intelligence, maybe more. Lisa whistled. "That's a lot of firepower." "Not enough," Jake said calmly. Both Lisa and Tom looked at him questioningly. Jake activated the main display. It showed the galaxy with thousands of new markers. Ships were moving from hiding places throughout space. They were all heading toward Earth and the major human colonies. "The sleeping fleet is waking up," Jake explained. "Ships like this one have been hidden in asteroid fields, nebulas, and dead systems for thousands of years, waiting for the call to return." The display zoomed in on one sector. Dozens of massive ships were emerging from what looked like empty space. Their hulls were the same black material as the armor. Their designs were beautiful and terrifying. "How many ships do we have?" Tom asked. "More than enough," Jake replied. On the display, human fleets were taking position around Earth and the colony worlds. But they weren't hiding. They wanted the aliens to see them coming. "Signal from the lead ship," Lisa announced. "Admiral Sarah Miles requesting permission to join." "The formation?" "Granted," Jake said. "Tell her we're glad to have her back." Admiral Miles had been sleeping in stasis for 3,000 years, waiting for humanity to need its warriors again. Like all the awakened humans, she was changed by the armor and the long sleep. Taller, stronger, and filled with ancient wisdom. "Admiral Miller," Tom said. "We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Security Council." On screen, the image of Admiral Kolex appeared in the air. Behind him, Jake could see representatives from dozens of alien species. They all looked worried. "Human Admiral Miller," Kolex began. "The Security Council demands that you explain your recent actions. Your forces are threatening the peace of the galaxy." "Admiral Kolex," Jake replied, "we haven't threatened anyone. We've simply reminded the galaxy that humans are not the weak species you thought we were." "You've stolen alien technology," a Corvani representative shouted. "That armor belongs in a museum, not on human soldiers." Jake laughed. "This armor was made by human hands long before your people learned to work metal. If anyone is stealing technology, it's the species that copied our designs after we left." "Impossible," Veltha's voice came from off-screen. "Humans are barely evolved primates. You couldn't have built such advanced systems." "Would you like a demonstration of what barely evolved primates can do?" Jake asked. The alien representatives whispered among themselves. They were scared, and it showed. "What do you want?" Admiral Kolex finally asked. "The same thing we wanted 3,000 years ago," Jake said. "Peace, order, an end to the constant wars and conflicts that plague this galaxy." "And you think threatening us will bring peace?" Jake shook his head. "I think reminding you of the consequences of war will bring peace. You've forgotten what happens when strong species pick on weak ones, when the powerful abuse their strength, when peace breaks down. You can't police the entire galaxy with a few thousand humans," Kolex protested. "Watch me." Jake activated another display. This one showed current conflicts across the galaxy, border wars between species, trade disputes turning violent, pirates raiding cargo ships, all the small conflicts that had been growing since humans withdrew from galactic affairs. "Every one of these situations will be resolved," Jake said. "The bullies will be stopped. The victims will be protected. The wars will end. By force? If necessary," But most beings are smart enough to choose peace when the alternative is facing awakened humans in battle. On the display, Jake showed recorded footage from recent human interventions. Pirate fleets surrendering without a fight when black ships appeared, border disputes ending when both sides saw human warriors monitoring the negotiations, trade routes becoming safe again because criminals knew humans were watching. This is tyranny, a Bralix representative accused. You're imposing your will on free species. We're imposing civilization on chaos, Jake corrected. The same way we did before, the same way we should never have stopped doing. Admiral Kolex leaned forward. And if we resist? If we fight back? Jake's expression grew serious. Admiral, your entire fleet has 3,000 ships. Most of them are converted merchant vessels with bolt-on weapons. You're bringing plasma cannons and missile pods to fight against technology that conquered this galaxy when it was young. You're bluffing, Kolex said, but he didn't sound confident. Tom, Jake said without looking away from the screen. Show Admiral Kolex what one human ship can do. On the display, the view shifted to show a human vessel approaching an asteroid field. The ship was sleek and black, about the same size as a typical alien cruiser. It fired a single beam of energy at the largest asteroid. The asteroid, which was bigger than most space stations, simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not broken apart, gone. The alien representatives fell silent. That was a warning shot, Jake said calmly. A demonstration of minimal power. Would you like to see what our weapons can do at full strength? No, Admiral Kolex said, quickly. That won't be necessary. Jake nodded. Good. Then we understand each other. What happens now? Veltha asked. Her musical voice had lost its superior tone. Now you go back to your worlds and tell your leaders that humans have returned to the galaxy, that we're resuming our old responsibilities, that peace is no longer optional. And if we agree to this, Admiral Kolex asked, then you'll find that trade becomes safer, wars become less profitable, weak species get protection from strong ones. The galaxy becomes a more civilized place. Jake looked around at all the alien faces on the screen, the same galaxy it was when humans ruled it before. One by one, the alien representatives nodded agreement. They had no choice. The demonstration had made it clear that resisting would be suicide. The Security Council will need time to discuss these changes, Admiral Kolex said. Take all the time you need, Jake replied. But while you're discussing, remember that human ships are already patrolling trade routes. Human warriors are already protecting colony worlds. The changes have already begun. Jake cut the transmission and turned to his officers. Lisa, begin deployment of the patrol fleets. I want human presence in every major system within the month. Yes, sir. Tom, start organizing the colonial protection units. Any world that asks for our help gets it. Any world that doesn't ask but needs it gets it anyway. Understood. Jake looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. After 3,000 years, humans were finally coming home to the galaxy that had once been theirs. The species that had laughed at them as weak and primitive were learning the truth. Humans weren't the youngest race in the galaxy. They were the oldest. They weren't the weakest.